Thank you, Honourable Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Honourable Member for his question. The enforcement of the Lit Act 2008, Honourable Madam Deputy Speaker, protecting our environment from pollutants and waste is in the interest of everyone. However, we unfortunately continue to see disregard for this important requirement. Our islands and their unique biodiversity and ecosystems are our inheritance. But before I go on, I'd like to just comment on the answer from the question answered by the Minister for Education about education and what we do when we grow up. It's exactly the same as our educating the populace on litter and the evils of littering. When I came back from Tonga, I came back with a video recording of the trip we made to watch whales. I showed it to my great-grandson, who is in the kindergarten. And he said, "What's that, Papa?" And I said, "It's a whale." He looked at it and said, "That's not a whale." I said, "What is it?" "Orca." And then went on to say, "That's a killer whale." Boy, kindergarten. What are we not doing right? Our islands and their unique ecosystems must be protected. Unfortunately, many of us have bad habits. On my trips to China and Japan, and experiences of clean roads and roadsides, etc., I do not know whether I was driven through the VIP route, which was cleaned before we drove through, but generally it's all clean. When we try to enforce the Act, but the enforcement is not really discouraging enough. The fine is $40. Whether you dump a car, or you dump a fridge, or plastic bag, and get prosecuted, it's $40. The litter decree or Act and its amendment is now being reviewed, including the container deposits for bottlers and those that use plastic containers. As I said, the fine is only $40, and if you don't pay that within 30 days, you will be prosecuted. The ministry has been diligently working on strengthening enforcement, which is really the issue, not the Act itself, it's the enforcement of the Act. There have been 18 training workshops for public and non-public authorities in Fiji. A total of 598 litter prevention officers have been trained and appointed. In 2019, during the Fiji First government, all 14 provinces and sent provincial conservation officers and litter enforcement officers to be trained under the functions of under the Act of 2008. There's been a training plan for new litter prevention officers that's being developed for this fiscal year. But despite the progress, we recognize that the Litter Act is now outdated. It lacks the definitions and differentiations that needed in many cases to enable effective policing and enforcement. There is an immediate need to introduce regulations to further enable the enforcement officers for the enforcement of this Act. However, introducing the regulations under the Act, it presents its own problematic issues due to the nature of many of the provisions of that Act. For example, the Act does not create sufficient differentiation within its definitions to reflect the difference in scale, as I mentioned earlier, and the implications of the different offenses. The fixed penalty, as I said, is $40. Whether it's a used refrigerator that's no longer serviceable or in use, and dropping paper wrappers on the side of the road or in the park, on the park. Instead, the Act only differentiates between litter and dangerous litter. And the definition of dangerous litter is focused mostly on the immediate danger to people. It does not include consideration of long-term dangers to the environment as it continues to rust, as it continues to pollute the environment they're in, whether it's water, sea, or on hard ground. Furthermore, and irrespective of those problematic definitions, there is no difference in the fines, as I said earlier. Madam Deputy Speaker, the fixed penalty is $40. It's not a deterrent, really. It's important to note that the penalty for a corporate body that commits an offense is $2,000, irrespective of the type and volume of litter that they deposit. It's wholly insufficient in the case of significant environmental offenses. And the Litter Act only applies to loose definition of public places, and the demarcation of boundaries for litter enforcement is not really clearly defined. The Act is being reviewed, and consultation is now in progress to bring the reviewed Act to Cabinet. But the Ministry acknowledges the existing gaps in the Litter Act of 2008 and its amendment in 2010, and the need to strengthen the enforcement and implementation of the Act through the thorough review which is ongoing right now. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Prime Minister.
Deputy Speaker.
Thank you.